Yes, good to go. I'm gonna review.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. We are honored to have a couple of very special guests on our campus today. We have from Schenectady Community College, Sage Freeman here, and Eric Nambo. And Eric is going to be doing our presentation today, leading our discussion. So our topic for today is accessibility, which is a very important topic for our courses and for any of our online materials. And I kind of recently had my perspective about accessibility changed. I thought that it was just, something that we needed to comply with for a special minority of our students. But it really is more about making our content better for everybody, 100% of our students and anybody who interacts with our content. It's not just about accommodating people who have identified themselves as having a disability. It's about just making everything better and removing barriers. So Eric is an accessibility advocate at Schenectady Community College, so he's going to lead us in our discussion. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Well, thanks for taking time out of your lunch and joining me in this conversation. So I'll be interacting in a couple different ways. I just want to point out that I use Poll Everywhere on occasion during the presentation. So if you want to interact with the presentation, you can text Eric Nambo 912 to 37607. And before I continue, this is a good point to show you that you can pull up this presentation on your phone if you'd like. If you can't see, if you're too far on the back, I'll show you where I have the links. Let's see. Where are the links? Didn't say. Okay, so you can go to aoti.wikispaces.com, and that'll take you to a resource hub where I have this presentation saved. Let's see if I can refresh this. So yeah, here's the link to the presentation right here. It's tinyurl.com BMCC ally. And that'll take you to the page where this is embedded into a website. And then this link here, od.wikispaces.com, will take you to a resource hub for accessibility. And I'll touch on what those do in a moment. So I'm just going to backtrack just a little bit and see some responses. Cool. And you can just like raise your hand or shout out. What do you hope to get from this presentation? What brings you to this classroom other than food? Lunch. So it seems that we got this is a word cloud, so it'll kind of just whatever keeps popping up, it'll blow up and get a little bigger. So I'm seeing some tips online. Shemekada, or who did that one? So, yeah, the general theme is going to be online, I suppose, and tips to accommodate students of all abilities. And let's see, let's go ahead and proceed forward. So again, those are the links. The first one takes you to the presentation, the second one takes you to a resource wiki, and I'll show you what that looks like. This is a resource wiki. Before we continue, I reference a lot of things that are in here. So what this is on screen right now is the Oregon Accessible Technology Initiative resource wiki. So anything that has come across that has to do with accessibility is kind of just housed here. You'll see a lot of different things from materials from PCC that are up here. This is a collaborative effort between any accessibility professional or advocate in the state of Oregon coming together. It's not just limited to community colleges, Octella, and there's actually people from outside of the state also contributing to this resource wiki. So you're more than welcome to sign up for updates. There's a membership form right here to get updated. But more or less, plug aside, I just kind of want to show you where you can find the presentation. So continuing on. So we're going to have a conversation today about accessibility on your campus. And the agenda is going to be a little loose. I want you to feel free to, ask questions, as they come up. So we're going to learn a little bit about you after a poll. You're going to learn some stuff about me. We're going to learn about Dr. Doe here on the agenda on page 4. We're going to look at some considerations for accessibility, and then we're going to learn about tips and tools, and I'll take more questions towards the end. So hopefully everyone has access to the slides, and we'll get a lot out of it. So let's see. A little bit about myself. I'm currently at Shemeka as their accessibility advocate. Before backing up a little bit, I've also presented for the Texas Distance Learning Association. I'm on their accessibility committee. So I am from Texas. I was born in Houston, Texas, and moved down here recently. This is a little bit different than Texas. It's a little colder, but I enjoy it. I'm also the co-lead for the Oregon Community College Distance Learning Association accessibility work group. So Karen Swanson from PCC is the other co-lead. We work pretty closely together. She helped me come up with that resource wiki that is an accessibility piece. Worked for the state of Texas for their accessibility assistive technology unit. And then before that, I got started in 2012 at Stephen F. Austin State University as a student assistant working in accessibility. So I'm pretty passionate about it. I like working here, and I love the opportunity to come to Oregon in a state that really has been progressive in this field. I mean, you almost deserve a hand for yourselves for showing up. I mean, this is a big show up right here. And I thank you for showing up and pursuing accessibility. So that's about me. So what about you? In this slide right here, if you could, again, text your responses here, should be, make sure it's all active. Technology is a little finicky at times. So there we go. So in this poll right here on slide 5, I'm asking a little bit about you, and I want to know a little bit about you. So this is respond to this poll. You can text the same thing, Eric Nambo, to text Eric Nambo 912 to 37607. And so I ask you, identify if you only teach exclusively online, if you teach a mix and you sometimes use your online learning management system, you never teach online or you're not an instructor. Anything's helpful here just so we get a little context and I know where we're coming from. So I'll give just a couple minutes to that.
I'm still trying to figure out how to do my phone.
There's also really the mobile app for Polio makes it a little easier if you have it.
Yeah, so you can use the mobile app too, or go to the link right here, pollev.com /Eric Nambo 912. It'll load up the poll and mobile, and that's an accessible web application. I'd also like to add, I forgot to mention, on that wiki space, if you need to, I have a PDF printout of this PowerPoint that's accessible. If you ever need that, that's available. So we still have some people responding. I think someone's changing their mind, perhaps. Teaching exclusively online. Just out of curiosity, who teaches exclusively online? Sorry, that was I taught exclusively online if you count professional development workshops for Texas. So I'm never, I've done some workshops, but mostly it's online work where I have people enrolling in certifications. Okay, cool. So let's see.
Well, I obviously don't teach exclusively by phone or I never get anything done.
Right? Yeah, mobile stuff. And, you can just, again, shout out if you'd like to.
All right, come on. You have to help me. So I know that one now and then. So if I
You're all using Canvas now. There's some changes this year. So imagine almost all of you have a mix of, even though it may not be an online course, you're using Canvas.
Yeah, I think those numbers reflect everybody. I think everybody here has at least one online course that they have put into their load, and then everybody uses Canvas even for their face-to-face classes. So I think that's reflected there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm seeing that it's a half mix of instructors and half not, and that's perfectly fine because accessibility is a collaborative effort. And it really applies to everyone, and I think there's a lot to take away for everyone. So progressing on to the slides, we're going to look at slide 7 here. So we're going to do a little, just talk to the person you're next to. Let's look at the case of Dr. Doe. And so Dr. John Doe, for some background context, he was asked by his department chair to develop an online course on the impact of computers in society. And so most of his content is going to be old pictures of computers, video clips of expert interviews, some collection of links, and he plans to do several small group interactions. So here's the problem. Dr. Doe is a seasoned expert in the field, but he's never taught online. No experience developing or delivering a course, and the course is expected to be ready in 6 months. So that's not a common situation because normally it's probably like 6 weeks or 6 days. So if we're being realistic, but so kind of think of some things that you would recommend to Dr. Doe. And so, if you kind of just want to talk amongst yourself or think of some things that you'd recommend right now, what would you ask or expect of Dr. Doe? So you can kind of work amongst yourself and think about that one. So we're going to do 2 minutes, and we're just going to progress on.
Just say
Good. Eric, do you mind just going back to the previous slide for a second so we can see the course materials?
Sure, yeah. So, old pictures of computers, video clips of expert interviews, and collections of links to websites. So that's kind of most of the content he's going to be working with.
Is it old pictures of computers or pictures of old computers?
Good question.
Good question. Let's just go with picture content. We'll go with that. So, feel free to text your submissions to the same number. And just kind of, if this was your colleague and they walked in your office, what would you suggest? Besides, freak out, cry, be upset.
Yeah.
Those are all reasonable reactions.
What would you suggest we have an online class? What would you suggest?
Anything about it? This is a pretty common. Because this happens. It really does. Happens more frequently than we like to admit. I don't think this is my water, is it? Nope, it is now.
It is there.
Sorry, that's all text, cool stuff. We'll read back some of the responses we've gotten so far. We have caption videos. Good choice. Ask Karen Willis, also another great choice. We're instructional designers. Instructional designer, I think someone's thinking the same thing. Provide a transcript of videos. Nice. That's a good one. Have a talk with Bruce and Karen. They're very nice people. I think so.
You too, there you go.
Interactive content. Watch some YouTube videos of others who teach online that have a high number of subscribers. That's an interesting take. You do kind of want to look at successful models, and some of the best successful models are the people in the office next door to you. So that's something to consider. Is that some of the greatest and closest resources are your fellow colleagues, and Google as well. Google got me through a lot. So it looks like we're rounding out the 2 minutes. So let's see some other ones. Alt text for pictures. That is clutch. That is super important. Have a talk. Let's see. Engage students with activities other than just reading and responding. That's a good point, and we'll talk about a little bit about universal design. I'll point you to some resources for that as well. Test your materials for ease of use. True. Yeah. Tab through it. That's a good way to go about it. So let's actually unpack that a little bit. So I guess a lot of people obviously consider accessibility. It's kind of a dead giveaway because it is the topic of this presentation. So on slide 10, I just want to tell you what are the odds. So the online student population from 2012 to 2010 increased, from 10 to 33%. And so as such, there's an increasing number of students who have disabilities. And it's a tricky number to pin down because students don't always disclose they have a disability. And there's a lot of hidden disabilities that we don't consider. So in general, a student with a disability makes up around 18.7% of the general population of students. And these are nationwide numbers, so keep that in mind. Here's the factor that kind of gets to me. Students with disabilities face lower graduation rates. So a student with a disability has a 35% chance to graduate, whereas every other student, it's 51%, over 50%. So there's obviously some kind of gap that's not being covered. So when we think about accessibility, I know there's laws and there's compliance that you need to meet, but I always like to say it's more than compliance, it's compassion. I feel that everyone who has any kind of role as an educator in any capacity, I think that we're all doing it for some point, and it's because you want to share information, you want to better, our students. So keep that in mind is when we're talking about accessibility, it's more than just a law. We're trying to help students meet them.
That graduation rate, is that from college in general or 2-year specific or?
I think taken from the book Assuring Quality in Online Education, I think it may be 4 institutions, but it may be combined with 2 years as well. Like I said, it's hard to collect data on students with disability.
And that's graduation from an online program?
That's graduation
in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, some considerations there, but accessibility goes beyond the online environment too. So that's kind of where I like to clarify that.
Bobby Sue, you and I were talking about some numbers. Would those statistics be even worse for community college, would you think?
Well, what I've read concurs with what you're presenting. The only difference I would say is that sometimes the research shows that community colleges can have as many as twice as the number of students who have disabilities.
Well, yeah, I could totally see that, especially because community colleges pride themselves on access, and that also means financial access. So it is a little more accessible in that sense. So I'd be interested to see some of that data, and that's something that we can probably talk about after this. So what does accessibility even mean? And I'm going to read you this, and I'm going to unpack it in a moment, so don't get too overwhelmed. But accessible means a person with a disability is afforded the opportunity to acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, and enjoy the same services as a person without a disability in an equally effective and equally integrated manner with substantially equipped. I'm just going to skip to the next one, guys. This is a lot. This definition does come from the, recent rulings and resolutions from the Department of Justice. So this is carrying some weight. This is it. But I like this graphic a lot better. This is a better representation of what that's trying to tell us. So this is a functional definition of accessibility. And so we're trying to provide the students the opportunity to acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, and enjoy the same services as students without disabilities in an equally equivalent ease of use. So that's an important factor, equivalent ease of use. So some people, I remember one institution was saying that a student that they had that wanted to participate in, I think it was live interactions like webinars or screen recordings or things like that, they needed to have someone that was doing sign language for them. But if you consider, is that really equal access to someone else that can access the same information 24/7 without help of anyone? It's not really the same kind of interaction if someone requires either a sign language interpreter to get the content. So it's not an equitable ease of use. So that's an important thing to consider. And this was this image here is licensed under CC BY Share Alike. So attribution is cool. So let's talk about some tips and tools to ensure access. One of the first tips I like to recommend to instructors is organization. So by organization, I mean that the learning content should be presented as clear as possible, consistent, structured, and predictable. So what I mean by this too is I've seen some Frankenstein courses sometimes. It happens that we inherit a course from someone. It's like, all right, I got 6 days to get this class live. So you get the course and you start adding your own stuff in there and taking some of their stuff out and mixing and matching it, and all of a sudden the course and the progression of the concepts, they don't make much sense anymore. It's kind of hard to follow along in the course. These tips are going beyond just visual impairments. These help people with cognitive disabilities, people with motor function impairments that may need some easier tabbing orders and a consistent structure. So organization is a very big and important one. So that's slide 14.
Also, Eric, I just noticed that you've got that picture of the library there, and I just imagine that that wasn't organized in such a way, how effective it would be. Thinking some other examples too, just immediately like highway signs and.
Exactly. So when we go to the library to use ThinkStage, we go to find information. It's super easy, right? Because we can search for it. We know that the nonfiction's right there in the nonfiction. We know it's alphabetical order. It's super easy to find things. That's a degree of access in itself. It's perceivable and it's operable to find these kind of things. So organization is one of the top tips I recommend.
And that helps everybody, not just students with disabilities, because if I went into a library that didn't have, any organization, nobody would be able to find the book that they're looking for.
Right. So it is a very helpful concept. Another thing to kind of consider while we're talking about these kind of things and how this isn't just for a student with a disability, I like to explain the analogy of a building. And say you're working on a 3rd floor. It all has the steps, and so unless you got 2 perfectly functioning legs, it's going to be hard to get up there. Well, some people have issues getting up steps. If someone who was in a wheelchair couldn't get there. So to fix it, you install an elevator. And now that student can get there with a wheelchair, but now you've added utility to the building and you can get freight up there. You can, makes it easier carrying things up and down. There's so much utility that comes inherently with designing things universally and to be accessible. So that's why whenever I make some of these tips, I won't necessarily distinguish the difference between making this for someone with a student disability or not. These are just best teaching practices in general. And so a lot of these things too are reflected in common design standards like QM and other things like that. But they all touch on organization in some of these tips. So the next tip I have to recommend on slide 15 is using headings. So this is a very simple one, but a very effective one to changing how a student interacts with content and how it's visually laid out. So by headings, I mean to utilize document styling features. One of my favorite ones that I recommend is Microsoft Word, and I'll get to why that's a really powerful application. If you're using a rich text editor or WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. And this is the kind of the content thing you'll see in your learning management system. Just make sure you're selecting headings and using them appropriately. And by appropriately, I mean they can scaffold. You can do heading level 1, heading level 2. A lot of these things are available in the styling ribbon of Microsoft Word or again in the rich text editor. So when you use headings, it improves navigation. I know for sure in Word, when you use headings, you can create a table of contents automatically. And that makes it to where if you have a long, extensive document, you can have a table of contents that you can actually click on and it'll take you to the next thing. And so for a student or for a very lengthy document that has a lot of stuff in there, that becomes super helpful that you can identify what's in the document by the heading, click on it, take you right there. This obviously has a lot of utility too for a student that's using a screen reader, and that some of the assistive technologies, they pick up on headings and makes it easier to navigate. Structure, it also does a double purpose of reinforcing that organization concept and that you're providing structure to the document. You're not just word vomiting with no breaks, no headings, no visual cues that are separating thoughts from other thoughts. It provides a lot of utility in that sense, and it literally just helps with readability. It provides spacing, it provides visual cues that help a student understand what the document's about.
Eric, I always think of like taking all the headings out of a newspaper and then reading through the newspaper and trying to figure out, or taking all the headings out of Facebook posts.
Yeah. So headings definitely have a pretty important role in this so far. So how are we feeling so far? Is there any questions that? Yes, sir.
Sure. Can we go back to the previous page?
Sure.
Can you elaborate a little bit on consistency you mentioned?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for asking that. So by consistency, what I mean is that it's generally encouraged to have most of your modules and learning content to look the same. This is helpful in that you know where you're going to find things. So for example, the layout would have, your module objectives, then you have the learning content, maybe a video that couples, and this is all for like, week 1. It's got all the stuff that's in there in the same format every single time. Always start with the objectives. Then it has the activities that need to be completed. Then it actually has the learning content, the assessment pieces, and then any supplemental stuff. So if it always looks the same, it's easier for the student, but it's also easier for yourself because you know where things are going to be. You know where, if someone says, hey, module 1's activity had a spelling error, you know where to jump to. And that same way that you connect that happens over and over again and you start memorizing it, that provides the same utility for our learners. So it's encouraged to have the same consistent structure, even so much as if you can have like a header on the top of your documents. It'll say like, what class is this for? That helps too. So that's what I kind of meant by consistency.
So you cannot be too spontaneous.
I wouldn't say that though. It's difficult to balance some of the creativity of being an instructor. You find something on video and you want to share it to your students. It's not saying that everything needs to be cookie cutter and the same. But what it's saying is you can leverage some of those concepts to make it somewhat consistent. For example, if you do find something neat, throw it in the supplemental part of the module, and you can tell your students, hey, I found a cool video. Hopefully it's captioned. It should be captioned. But throw it in the same place. Be consistent and always doing the same kind of principles over and over in the same concepts, so your students never have to guess where things are at or where they're going to be or how things are. And it applies to grading too. Rubrics help with consistency and things like that. So.
Eric, does it have anything to do also like recognizing patterns? So if you're consistent in your course design and the way you're organizing it, then I, as a student, might start to predict where to find things and how you're going to organize the next module.
Yes. So yeah, having the same consistency does help with learners kind of retaining things a lot easier.
I just have a question. So I have an online class that's going up for Quality Matters review. And I mean, every week it has the same format. This is what we're, a short study tip. This is our objectives of this chapter. This is what's assigned. And it goes like lecture, quiz, labs, supplemental resources every single time. I'm just curious about what would be a good PC way for student accountability, because I have students who at the end, this is week 10, I didn't know where to find that homework assignment. I'm sorry, you submitted 9 weeks of other stuff. What's going on here? Or what day is our final exam? We post it on, it's posted in my class in several places. It's also posted on our school website. So how do we address the student accountability section? Because I aim to be clear, consistent, structured, and predictable, right. But sometimes I don't feel like they're even meeting me 10% of the way. Like they want me to force feed them everything.
Right. Yeah, and that's a question that's come up at Chemeketa in regards to the topic of learner retention, or more or less just keeping our student retention, rather. So, it's common practice that we'll have a, hey, post in the discussion board, let me know you're here. Take the syllabus quiz, make sure you read it, but hardly ever do it or follow up and do it again. And so maybe halfway through, as you're releasing midterm grades, do another checkup, make sure that they're still there, that they still know where the things are at. If you include that structure of how your modules look and somewhere in integrating like a quiz at the halfway through, it doesn't have to be graded. It's more or less just like, hey, I'm here still, like students sometimes check out. I'm terrible at online classes. I'm guilty of it, but having some kind of way to check in on the learner halfway through or periodically, you can really set the periods however you like, but just kind of follow up. Do that same activity again and make sure that they do know when the final is. They know when the drop dates are. They know where the resources are at. It's kind of helpful just to remind them every now and then. So that's a great question. Did you still have a question? Okay, cool.
I've seen other instructors too have like a week 1 quiz that's based on the syllabus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do it again. Make sure they know where that's at. So I think that's a,
I would comment just on Sasha's comment. You know, Sasha, I get those questions in class, and for some reason, they don't bother me as much as when a student types it out to me. And so I'm struggling with, like, why do I feel so put upon when they, like, type this? And part of it is, I think, okay, you took the time to, like, go to inbox to, like, type this. You could have just gone to the syllabus and looked it up, versus when they're sitting in class and they don't have the syllabus and they're like, what is the final exam? I just tell them. Do you know what I'm saying? So why do I feel sometimes? So maybe it's just like, okay, pause, just let them know.
But it was something that I noticed in my face-to-face class yesterday too. I had 3 people ask, I'm like, I've been announcing it multiple times, and it's on the website. It hasn't changed over the last couple of years. You're graduating this spring, so you've been here for 2 years. How do you not know when our exam is?
I would just say, well, remember, it's in the website.
There's a lot of rescheduling this term, to be fair to the students.
I mean, I usually just give them the answer, but deep down, I'm suppressing the things, like the desire to just say, see attached, and give them the website, you know?
But it seems like you have some genuine curiosity too about what is it about this learner that is not picking up these predictable patterns that they demonstrated throughout the term.
Yeah, like,
Well,
what is it now?
Yeah.
let me also comment on, it's also important to periodically look at your course, because not that you're doing anything wrong, but if you see it, if the student keeps asking the same, if you see it happening over and over from different students about the same assignment, look at that again. Maybe something didn't upload correctly, or maybe you could use better wording or place somewhere else. That's something that, moving on to the next slide, I think is one of the most important tips I could recommend, other than heading super important, is going back to the basics and using the ADDIE model of instructional design. And so if you're unfamiliar with this,
Yeah, who is familiar with ADDIE? Can you just raise your hand if you've heard of ADDIE before in your life? Okay.
oh, so the ADDIE model, it's a system of instructional design. And this isn't exclusive only to instructional designers. It's a practice that that a lot of educators practice and do every year. So it's a cyclical model that entails that you analyze some of the constraints around your course. So, how long do I have to develop this course? What, level, what are my learners looking like? Think about who your audience of your course is going to be. The next model is to design the course. And you don't need any fancy software to do this. You can do this on a piece of scratch paper. And with the design portion, structure the course. Even if it's, on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, kind of draw out how you want your course to look. And also maybe consider how you want the student to progress through the course. What do you want them, the first thing that they see when they log into your course, what is it going to be? Is it going to be a video of yourself? Is it going to be course timelines, the syllabus, a mix of those, perhaps a getting started module? Your instructional designers can help you figure that out. The next piece is the development. Let's make it. So with the let's make it, start getting your materials together, seeing what could be a problem in your materials. We all have that favorite PDF that we scanned that it has been scanned over and over again to where you have no idea where the original is at. That happens. This is the actual part where you're putting stuff together. You're making the content, or you're collecting it, getting it together. The second to last piece here on this slide 16, is the implementation. So this is the part where you actually go through and teach it. This is the course going live. This is you observing some of those comments about, why do they keep emailing me about this? Note those things. Note the success of your students. Is there a particular module that's giving them a hard time that you see lower grades? Just make observations in this step. And then the fifth part is evaluate. This is where you take all those observations and you weigh them against, could this be done better? Was this material not effective? Different things. But the most important piece to remember is that this is a process, a continuous model. It's, even if you're new to online teaching and you don't have anything, or if you've been doing it for 10 years, it's always important to continually go through this, even more so in the online technical environment. We get new phones every 2 years, but I've met instructors that haven't redone their course by. So and especially, in this 21st century of technology, we need to always make sure our stuff is up to date and that we're always, aside from the technology piece, making sure that our instruction is effective for our learners. So let's look again on page 17, I have some more tips here. Closed captioning. Ask your college about, your instructional designer about Octella captioning. So the Oregon Community College Distance Learning Association has a pool of closed captioning available. So you just ask your instructional designer, your e-learning department, what are my options here? Things like that. Alt tags for images. Some of that stuff's a little more basic. No PDF images.
All right, so what's an alt tag and why no PDF? So it's not, be basic.
Yes, okay, so
Thank you.
let me go back one. So this image here, an alt tag, would essentially just have all this text associated with this image. A lot of any kind of rich text editor, Microsoft Word, and I'll show you in a moment how to kind of do some of that stuff. You can add some data on the back end that will be available for screen readers. So the student who's using a text-to-speech, the way their software, their program works is when the focus comes over this, since they're vision impaired, they can't see it, it'll read the data on the back end and it'll announce it through their headphones and say, image of the ADDIE model 1 analysis 2 design. And so without that, it won't recognize it and the student is going to completely miss that altogether. So it's important to add alternative text to images. On back to slide 17, this is a decorative image, and this doesn't tell you anything. This is something I got off of Pixabay, which is a pretty cool resource for Creative Commons licensed images. So I wouldn't put an alt tag on this one. And what I mean by PDF images, this one's a little bit more of a thick one, and we can spend some time on it if we'd like, but there's a difference between a PDF that was originally authored in Word and one that is the product of something that you scanned. And so, again, there's two ways to make a PDF. You can make it in Word and then export it out to PDF, or you can put it on a flatbed scanner, scan it, and save it as a PDF. The important thing is why I was kind of talking about going back to slide, what was that, 15. These features, the headings features, they're available whenever you make it in a word processing software program, Microsoft Word, in the learning management system. These structure features, the headings, they're not available. They're not showing whenever you scan a PDF most of the time, because it reads it as like a picture that needs an alt tag versus a document that has structure. Yes?
Is that also true if you use something like PowerPoint and export it to a PDF?
Will it keep the...
Will it maintain the ability to navigate, will it be readable?
Yes, actually that's what I did for this presentation on the ODI website. What I did is I made these in Google Slides and then I exported to PowerPoint because Microsoft has an amazing suite of accessibility tools built into it that allow you to make accessible media. So knowing that it was easier to do it in Microsoft Office, I exported this out to Microsoft Office, cleaned it up, and then exported it as a PDF to make an accessible document printout of this PowerPoint. So, and I can show you some things if we have time. I think we're getting close to the top of the hour.
You mentioned also about the importance of opening PDFs in a new window. Only being that if the PDF opens that's inside of, if it doesn't open in a new window, then it can be harder for maybe screen readers to read it.
Yeah, so another general practice that's encouraged amongst, which started as a practice for web designers, accessible web designers, is now kind of being implemented in learning technology is anytime you have an option to open the new content in a new window, you should probably do that because it makes it easier for people that are using assistive technology to navigate back and forth between windows. Technology is a little finicky sometimes, and so when you separate the two out, say it's a link in Canvas and it's like the PDF, when they're one on the same, it's kind of hard to navigate back and forth between the Canvas stuff, the coding on the Canvas, and the media that you're trying to show the student. If instead you have it open in a new window, now they can go back and forth between these windows. And so I don't want to get too technical about it. It's already a little complex, but it's just a generally encouraged practice to open new content in a new window. It's generally around a little easier, and it also helps with, if a student wants to like go back to the syllabus, they're not going to worry about losing that document because it's already open in a new window. They can just minimize it, come back to it later. So it helps in that kind of sense. Moving forward, so again, looking at the case of Dr. Doe, we know he has old pictures of computers. It is old pictures of computers, and I know it's that. I'll explain in a second. Video clips, collections of links. Here's the solution for this. Dr. Doe enrolled in the faculty online training from Faculty Development's there, not form. You created an outline of the course. Start wireframing your stuff. You got 6 months. What do you want your course to look like? Drafted some content, collected all the other stuff. Started getting your stuff together, compiling it. He learned the accessibility requirements. This is a tricky one. For the best way to learn about these accessibility requirements are to reference things like QM, Quality Matters. That's an online quality assessment piece for online courses. But you can use it in other courses. It isn't just limited to online. You can go to your instructional designers or even your colleagues that have some familiarity with accessibility. Again, the people next to you are one of the most helpful resources because they're immediately there. They may have been through it before. And if not, now you got a battle buddy and you can go through it with someone. So the other piece is that you continue to develop this course over time. Dr. Doe realized that he had a lot of stuff. And it wasn't all going to be ready day one. It's a reality sometimes. But you have to prioritize which ones you want to make accessible now. But it's a continuous process. You're never done fixing your content because your content's probably going to change. And so will the technology that you're using it with. So continue developing this course content. I want to point out that I got this example case study called Dr. Doe's Internet Course, a case study on accessible distance learning. And that's provided by University of Washington, which are experts in universal design learning. So they have some pretty cool sample cases like this. So moving on from slide 19 to slide 20, you might be thinking at this point, how do you do all this stuff, right? We thought about it. I mean, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to unpack in here, and I didn't even really cover any technical stuff. How do you do this? You go to your distance ed and e-learning peeps over here. So Karen is an excellent resource that will help you get some of these concepts and strategies down and help you plan for the future going forward. And so that's slide 22. On slide 23, you might be thinking, does everyone know what time it is?
Tool time?
Tool time. All right. So here on slide 24, I'm going to share some tools with you. The first one is that resource wiki. Again, this is a collaborative set of it is a wiki in its sense in that there aren't resources there, but they point to other ones, and they have again little previews of what's on the webpage, and it's organized by different topics. If you want to learn more about strategy, and you say you're more of an administrator role, you can learn about strategies that are used across the nation. You can get to some training materials, and I'll show you one of them right here in a moment. I'll get to Ally in a second. That's a really cool tool. I think you're going to like it. And then Microsoft Word tutorial. This is a super impactful tutorial that has been made by the Texas Governor's Committee on People with Disabilities. And I can show you how to access that from the wiki. So if you go to the home page, you'll see that there's this heading off to the side here. So now I'm on the od.wikispaces.com. You'll see the BMC presentation. Let's see. Is it in here yet? Did I do it? Maybe. Strategy, perhaps? Yeah, here we go. It's mislabeled, my bad. Creating accessible documents. And so this is given proper attribution, used with permission. And so this is the URL, but in this set of training tutorials, I'm just going to open it as it's supposed to be. New window, remember? Good thing to do. This is a comprehensive Microsoft Office training materials. It's going to show you how to use the Productivity Accessibility tab and use the Accessibility Checker. That's a huge, huge component that I'll circle back to as we're running short on time. And if you want to hang around, we can kind of look at that. So going back to the presentation. Tool time. Tim, the tool man Taylor. All right, ally.ac. This is an interesting product here. So I'm going to show a clip of this video. For context, this is, I'll just let the video explain it. They kind of explain better what the tool is. So it's an accessibility checking tool that goes inside the learning management system, and it's very neat. If we have audio.
Oh, we are muted.
Ally is a revolution. Introducing Blackboard Ally, dedicated to helping create truly inclusive experiences in education. Ally is a revolutionary course content accessibility service that integrates closely with a learning management system. Accessibility of digital course content has been a significant problem for some time, affecting students, instructors, and institutions worldwide. Too often, conversations around accessibility stop at the systems instructors and students use, and the content that lives in them is often neglected. It is very difficult for an institution to understand how they are performing with regards to accessibility. There are vast amounts of content created continuously by many different people, making it hard to understand how or where institutions need to improve, let alone what the legal risks are. Some students with disabilities might require specific accommodations, and a quick response can be challenging. Improving accessibility will ultimately make a difference for all students. Ally is dedicated to helping you make your course content more accessible. We do this in 3 ways. First, Ally uses machine learning algorithms to automatically provide alternative formats for course content throughout your entire institution. This gives students immediate access to more accessible alternatives such as semantic HTML, audio, EPUB, electronic braille, and more, without any manual intervention from the institution or instructor. Ally also checks and scores all content in the course.
So I'll pause it there. If you kind of got the gist of that, what that is as you're uploading content into the learning management system, the Ally tool will automatically check the degree of accessibility, help remediate it, show you how to fix things that it couldn't automatically do, and then turns around and produces accessible formats automatically within the learning management system with very minimal, pretty much no technical know-how from the instructor point. So it's a brand new tool that's in development right now, and it's cutting edge that no one's really seen any kind of this technology implemented. So it's very advanced, and it's still kind of new. If you're interested to learn more about it, we will be doing a demo later if we have time.
Yeah, at 2 o'clock in this
Yeah.
room to see a more full demonstration.
How expensive is something like that gonna be?
So the state of Oregon is actually looking at buying it.
The state distance learning group is actually looking at it right
So we
now.
don't have access to it currently?
No.
No.
So,
But it's in the proposal, we vote April 27th, but we wanted to actually show this here because when I go to vote anyways, I vote for the NCC and I'm going to vote for it. But I'm working with SMECA on pricing to try MTEs to make sure that we get it because it is a good tool, especially if it'll fix things for you. You know,
so we do want to hear your feedback about it to see if it's something that's going to be valuable for us. We think it is, but we want to know from the instructor's point of view what you think about it.
Well, you can imagine too, that it's more than just accessible. I mean, if I had the opportunity to download EPUB or an MP3 or a different format I prefer for my learning preference.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very powerful tool that is, again, in the cutting edge of development right now. It finally started coming around last year, and so it's getting ready for production now. And definitely, I'm going to make a poll right now. So at the end of the presentation, if you want to text your thoughts about it, that'd be super cool. And it is anonymous. So if you have thoughts on that, that'd be great. But continuing on from slide 25, since we are getting towards the top of the hour, we're past it now. I said that like 5 times. That's the end of my presentation. So yeah, questions, comments, concerns, problems, things of that nature. So you can go ahead and text that or hit me.
Well, I just have a question for the faculty here. Has anyone had students with these kind of disabilities that would need access for this, or?
I have never in my online classes had anyone say, I can't read, see. I mean, I just haven't, so I don't know if they've just been quiet and not complained. But I've never had a person in an online class tell me that they needed something different.
But I will
That's
tell
just
you,
my experience.
from something that just happened to me a couple days ago, I was going through an online training. It was in Moodle, and I had been doing it for hours, and I got to the next page that I had to read, and it was this long of text. And at that point, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't read anymore. But they had a little screen reader thing, and I clicked that, and it read it to me. And then I learned that content so much easier. So I don't have a learning disability, but just having that alternate format was so helpful for me, because it was a lot of content. So I appreciated that. It wasn't, it's not for just the few, it's really for everybody.
And we have, because I get all the disability reports that come out of that office when we was for LMS. And mainly it was the captioning, they had to get some videos captioned, and Sasha's used that so far. She's the only one that really, other than me putting stuff in there. But we get videos for captioning. There was one where it was printed, the student couldn't read black on white. Didn't tell anybody until I actually walked into the classroom, and she says, it was, Ron Healy was an instructor, and says, I need to see the picture of him. He was actually teaching Hermiston that day. I need to be able to read his lips. And then I said, why? And then it was a quick fix, because I had Ron switch colors, go to blue or something like that. Oh, that's perfect. But a lot of times they don't tell us, so we really don't know. But I do know we've had the video caption piece come quite a bit. So.
And I'll also add to that, just because you haven't had someone yet, it doesn't mean you shouldn't consider these things, because again, going back, these aren't just best practices for accessibility, they're best practices for online learning. And that accessibility, if it hasn't happened to you yet, accessibility is everyone's responsibility in different capacities. As instructors and educators, there's an obligation to make sure that the students can, receive our content, and make sure that they can learn successfully free of barriers. Then there's other parts of the college that are tackling other issues of accessibility that are outside the scope of faculty. So it really is a collaborative effort to ensure that students don't have any learning barriers. Cool. So demonstration, I think some people want to see that. Might not use the word cloud again, because it kind of jumbles everything up. So, yeah, that's just the comment I wanted to make on that. I think here at Blue Mountain, you guys are a unique opportunity, because most colleges don't act until there is a lawsuit, until there is a problem. And once there's one problem, the Office of Civil Rights will look through everything. And it's stressful for everyone involved. It ends up in a lot of forced change, which isn't as good as organic change. And the fact that there's so many of you in here right now is a great sign that Blue Mountain's on the way to accessibility. So be sure to work carefully with your instructional designers. And I appreciate you for choosing that. It's not compliance, it's compassion. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I'll stick around here if anyone wants to chat.
Yeah, and again, at 2:00 in this room, we're going to be doing that demonstration of the Ally software. So if you want to invite others to come as well, we'll take a look at that. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
There's some more cookies in the back.
Oh, and take your pens or lanyards from Schmecca if you'd like one.
I don't know whose cup this is, and it's totally different size too. So that was.
It's yours now.
That was weird.
It's like,